Hi, this is Antonia Dodge with Genius Awakening. And I wanted to address a question that we got on the blog in one of the blog posts about the differences between intuitives and sensors and how to communicate. If we have such radically different worldviews and we come at the world in such radically different ways, then what's the key to successfully communicating if one person is a sensor and one person is an intuitive? So I created this short webinar to give what we think, Cameron and I feel, is one of the greatest keys to successful communication between sensors and intuitives. And this comes from a book called Language in Thought and Action by S.I. Hayakawa and Alan R. Hayakawa. This is a great book for understanding how language impacts the very nature of our thoughts. And there was a really great model in there called the ladder of abstraction. Now, this was meant to sort of express how people naturally think in different levels of abstraction. And as we've mentioned before, intuitives tend to be more abstract thinkers and sensors tend to be more concrete thinkers. So if we go through a model that kind of gives us a framework for understanding concrete versus abstract thought, this is one of the best ways to understand how we can meet in the middle or even come to somebody else's land, so to speak. Think in terms of somebody else's way of seeing the world. And so we're going to do that by pulling this ladder of abstraction from the book Language in Thought and Action. So it's described as an actual ladder, right? And the higher up we go on the ladder, the more abstract the thought is, and the lower on the ladder we go, the more concrete the thought is. So when we communicate, basically here's the thought. When we communicate, we naturally gravitate to certain levels of abstraction. The higher on the ladder, the more abstract, or what we can consider higher concept. And the lower on the ladder, the more literal or concrete we go. And we all, as individuals, gravitate to one of these levels. Doesn't have to be the highest level, doesn't have to be the lowest level, but we each, as an individual, have a comfort zone that we like to stay in. So to understand these different levels, let's use the illustration of the most concrete object that we can. Let's use Bessie the milk cow. Now, the reason why Bessie the milk cow is very concrete is that there's only one of her. It's Bessie. You can point at her. Everybody can point and look and go, right there, that's Bessie the milk cow. So Bessie the milk cow is an example of an extremely concrete object. There's only one of her. She's right there. She's physical. She's tangible. We can all point at her and agree that that is indeed Bessie the milk cow. However, if we go one rung up on the ladder, we get a little more abstract. And let's just talk about cows. Not Bessie the milk cow, but just cows in general. Cows in general, now this is still pretty concrete, right? Cows in general are concrete. We can all point at a cow and go, oh, that's a cow. But it's not as concrete and tangible as Bessie because there's not just one of them. There's now different kinds of cows. There's different breeds of cows. There's different contexts that cows are in. So this becomes a little more abstract. It's just cows in general as opposed to Bessie. If we go one rung up the ladder again, now we have an even more abstract concept. Now we have a farm animal. So farm animal, again, relatively concrete. We could all point at a chicken and go, yeah, chicken's a farm animal. We can point at a cow and go, cows are farm animals. But we could point at a horse, and a horse may or may not be a farm animal. A horse might be, bred for running or something to that effect. So not all animals are farm animals, even if they're on a farm. So now we're getting more abstract. Now we're getting more like, oh, is this a definitive? Is this a concrete, tangible, or is this more of a concept? If we go one rung up even from that, we have a farm asset. Okay, so now we're not talking about animals anymore. Now we're talking about anything that is considered an asset for the farm. This could be a tool. This could be a tractor. This could be land. This could be anything that could be sold as an asset for the farm. Now, assets are pretty abstract. We could still point at something and go, yes, tractor, farm asset. But at the same time, somebody might see something as an asset that another person doesn't see as an asset. So now we're definitely getting into the realm of abstract, right? These are higher concepts. These are things that we can't just point out and all agree upon. These are things that some discussion around them is usually required in order to define them. And if you go one rung up from even that, we've got money. Now, money might feel concrete, tangible. You pull out your dollar bill, you go, yes, that's my George Washington. That's my $1 bill. But the reality is that money is extremely abstract. We ascribe value to these little dollars, these little pieces of paper. But the truth is that money's just a concept. Money's a concept that we've all agreed upon for the most part. But if you go someplace else to another country, your little green piece of paper is no good there. And what they describe or define as money might be very different. We all see money as something valuable, right? Value exchange. But the reality is that money is what we individually describe as value exchange. So this gets really abstract. So you can kind of see how this model works. We go from the very concrete, tangible, and we go all the way up to the high abstract, high concept, need some conversation in order to define what something actually is. And look at that ladder for a moment. Ask yourself, what rung are you most comfortable at, right? Where do you as an individual tend to sort of land? And the real gem here is recognizing that other people have a different rung that they're comfortable at than you, right? And that's, that kind of makes sense. We're all individuals. We all have different comfort levels and zones of comfort. But really understand what this means. It means that if you're the kind of person who's the most comfortable at Bessie the Milk Cow, and that's what you're talking about all the time, and somebody else is most comfortable talking about farm animal, then when you're coming at each other and you're going, no, this is obvious. I'm pointing at it. See, I'm looking at it right now, and this is really super duper obvious, and that's Bessie. And the other person's going, yeah, but farm animal, right? Bessie may or may not be a farm animal. Maybe she's somebody's pet, right? And it seems like you guys are actually disagreeing, but the reality is that you're simply looking at the same object from a little bit different perspective. You're looking at it from a different rung on the ladder of abstraction. So just take a moment to ask yourself, where do you usually land on this ladder? And once you've identified it, just kind of keep that in mind as we go through the rest of this little presentation. Now, again, as you go up, things get more abstract. These are principles, these are categories, groups, fields. These are things that require conversation in order to define as a general rule. These are things that are higher concept. And there are some people, primarily intuitives, that prefer conversations that are higher up the ladder of abstraction, usually at the highest rungs. And as you go down, these are concretes, these are tangible, these are single examples of a thing. And sensors tend to appreciate examples and conversations that are further down the ladder of abstraction. Now, one advantage, and this is something that sensors have as a major advantage, is that concrete tangibles are considered the universal language. And what that means is that we all learn to speak in these terms, and we are all impacted by them. And this is actually why direct marketing works, because we are all impacted by direct, concrete, tangible language. So sensors have an advantage in that concrete tangibles are sort of a universal language for all of us. And even intuitives are highly impacted by concretes as well. However, it doesn't go the opposite way. Principles, abstractions, those kinds of things, the ones that are higher on the ladder of abstraction, these are not universal. So intuitives have a disadvantage in that when they want to talk about the stuff they want to talk about, if the other person's not an intuitive and they're not understanding them sort of on an intuitive level, then they're most likely not going to get the desire that they want. They're not going to be able to have the conversation that they want. They're going to have to bring it down the ladder, which again is the universal language. So if you're a sensor and you really want to connect and communicate with an intuitive, climb up the ladder. That's the key. The key to the whole operation is start to climb up the ladder. Start to recognize when you are thinking in terms of single tangible examples and ask yourself, okay, so what category does this single tangible example fall into? And what category does that fall into? All the way up until you get to more abstract concepts. And this is where intuitives tend to hang out. Now, this is going to feel really uncomfortable for you at first. It's not easy. It's not something that you're just going to fall into. It's definitely going to be something that you're going to have to train your brain to do. So if you're a sensor and you don't have any intuitive friends, or you don't really have any intuitives in your world, I don't really recommend doing this very much. I don't really recommend, going to these lengths in order to be able to, connect with the odd intuitive. I do recommend that you keep this in mind so that if you do run into an intuitive, say at work or, just out in the wild, you understand that they're not trying to be, say, sometimes sensors think that intuitives are trying to be hoity-toity, or they're trying to, take on airs. When really, this is just their natural language. This is just how they think. So if you do run into an intuitive in the wild, just kind of recognize that they're not, they're not trying to be deliberately obnoxious. They're just thinking in a different way. However, if you're a sensor that's married to an intuitive or in a relationship with one, this is something that you might want to spend some time and effort really trying to do. And that is when you are having a conversation with the intuitive and the intuitive starts to go into these sort of abstract conversations and sort of this terrain that is not concrete, tangible, that isn't something that can just be pointed to and we all agree upon it. Go ahead and give them some space and maybe learn their language, learn how they're doing it. So take some cues on how they're thinking. And this actually will take you out of your comfort zone. This will help you to grow as an individual. And so I highly recommend doing this, especially if you have an intuitive in your world. And so one of the specific ways you can do this is ask why and what if questions instead of what or how questions. Why and what if gets you into the realm of the more abstract, because now we're into the realm of speculating. We're now in the realm of something that isn't known to be true. It's a what if. It's requiring your imagination. So whys and what if questions generally take you up the ladder of abstraction. What and how questions generally take you down the ladder. So if you're an intuitive in a relationship with a sensor, now you're probably speaking that more concrete universal language, but just remember that they're asking what and how questions more often. And, recognize that this is just a different way of approaching the world, and cut each other some slack. And for the sensors, listen to ideas that may not seem to have immediate benefit or application. This is the thing about an abstraction. It may not necessarily ever become a concrete reality. It's just a concept. So go ahead and take some time, hold some space for the intuitive, and listen to these ideas that might not seem to have immediate benefit or application. Those are just two of the highest leverage ways to really connect and communicate with the intuitive in your life. And recognize that some of the subjects that they enjoy the most are things like philosophy, science, ethics, etymology, those kinds of things. Now, as a sensor, you can enjoy all those things too. So this is not saying that only intuitives enjoy these conversations. But recognize that these are kind of the categories that intuitives like to stay in, depending upon the intuitive in your life, of course. And just kind of recognize when they go into this territory, they're usually looking to converse on a higher concept level. That's usually what's going on for them. So good luck. Good luck to everybody, for sensors and intuitives. Good luck in trying to communicate with each other. And when I say trying, I mean you will succeed if you definitely try hard enough. And I personally believe that sensors and intuitives can have great relationships. So good luck to everybody, and leave your comments in the comment section of this blog and tell me what you think. All right, talk to everybody later.